Alrighty, welcome back to lesson 4 of chapter 4, flying from here to there, flight instrumentation. Yesterday we started introducing the idea of the true airspeeds and the different airspeeds that the airspeed indicator would tell you. We went through the 5 different airspeeds here. When you're flying, when you're talking about planes, what is the general airspeed that a pilot would look at an instrument and use?
Airspeed indicator. No.
What airspeed? Which of these airspeed behind me? Which are the ones here on?
Calibrated.
But you would look at the indicator, look at it, and see which one it would be. Which airspeed would it be?
Indicator.
Indicate. Yeah, you're just looking at the instrument. So on the bottom of page 326, and let me see if I can call that up here. You have a airspeed indicator. Okay. Bottom of page 326, airspeed indicator, and you have different markings on it. What do all those markings mean?
I do. First.
What do you think the red line means
The
there?
red line is a pilot should never exceed this speed, doing so may damage an aircraft or even cause structural failure.
That's kind of a bad day when you exceed the red airline. This is probably a very typical Cessna airspeed indicator. I have only accidentally exceeded the red line once, and I thought I was going to die. It was not a good day. I was actually instructing and actually doing out, when you're an instructor and you're teaching people how to do stalls and then spins, which is not unusual in the civilian world. The student did not recover from the spin as quickly as I thought, and I was a new instructor. And I kind of messed up. I let the student go make a mistake and go too far. And in the recovery, we went probably to this same type of thing. We probably went close to 170. And I was waiting for the wings to fall off the aircraft. And fortunately for you guys, and that's so sweet, so for you guys, I wouldn't have been here to open up the ROTC. But anyway, that does happen. You don't ever want to do it. In the yellow, what's a yellow arc, guys?
The yellow arc is the range in which pilots should be cautious. Pilots should fly within this range only in smooth air, and even then only with caution.
So when you go through the yellow arc, would you fly through the yellow arc through clouds and turbulence? No. And that's exactly right. A lot of times I'd be flying through clouds or turbulence, or in the East Coast you have thunderstorms about every day. You're probably flying this plane probably between 120, 110, be normal. But you would not want to go up into the 140s, 150s. But out here in the West, maybe when it's beautiful and clear and smooth, like in the winter right now, without any clouds, yeah, you can push it up and go a little faster there. Normal operations, the green arc. What about a white arc? What's that?
Aircraft's operating range.
Yeah, well, why do you need to be slow for takeoff and landing?
So you can take off and you can land.
Yeah, well, you stall, right? You land. Landing's a stall, and you come in and land. That's also called slow flight. When I'm up there teaching students, you actually learn to control the aircraft at slow maneuver. So, can you fly this plane at say 50 miles an hour?
Yes.
Because it's on the green and the
Yellow.
No.
Red.
Green and white.
White.
Yeah, green and white. Well, can you fly it at 40?
No. Well, you can.
What's the white arc mean?
Landings and approaches.
Yeah, it says, so therefore you might have to put down flaps, right? Create the curvature of your wings. And so yeah, slow flight at 40 would be okay. You could do that. And actually, as an instructor, that shows me that you guys know how to operate the aircraft at the extremes of the aircraft, and you're real smooth, and you know how to do it. And guess what? You probably land the aircraft as you can control it at 40. So that's exactly what you do in flying. So this is a standard airspeed indicator. How about if you're in a crash? We can start working towards our crash unit. And you have, what airspeed is the plane flying right now?
0.
Look at it.
Oh, the airspeed?
93, sir.
90, yeah, 90, what, 92 and a half? 93, yeah, I agree, I'll buy that. And so what happens? You have a big crash, kaboom, and all of a sudden everything is spread out over 2 acres, and you pick up this instrument just like that, and the pointer's gone. But if you have an impact against a ground or a mountain, that pointer will actually mar the green arc, and there'll be a scratch there. So you as an investigator could pull this up without a pointer or anything and pretty much tell how fast the speed of the aircraft was at impact. So what would happen when you pick up an airspeed indicator like this on a crash site and you have a scratch right there at 92? What would that tell you about the plane and the?
It was going 92.
Yeah, was he trying to land?
No.
No. If he crashed and it was scratched at 45, yeah, he's probably trying to land. But at 92, that means he was probably just going fast as can be, a normal flight, and hit a mountain. He might have been flying the clouds when he shouldn't have been flying. And all of a sudden, the mountains get real big in clouds when you're making a mistake. So that tells you a lot about like an investigation. That's what we'll see. All right, functions of an altimeter. Altimeter or altimeter? How do you pronounce it?
Altimeter.
Altimeter.
How do you spell P-I-T-O-T?
Toe. P-top.
Pitot tube. I laugh about it. All right, so this is an altimeter. How do you pronounce it? Alligator or alligator?
Alligator.
You guys don't know about those. They don't exist in Arizona. All right, so it is not an alligator. It's not a pitot. It's a pitot, and it's not an altimeter. It's an altimeter. Okay. All right. So the bottom line is you can look at the bottom of the page there on my display how the altimeter works. It is also a pitot-static tube system. You can see it actually has a pressure gauge in there that has a static port and set up to the barometric scale. You have an adjustment knob there on the bottom left that you actually turn the current barometric pressure into the screen, and that gives you an exact altitude. What altitude is that example there on 327 on my display? What altitude are you flying at right there?
Like 2,000 feet.
Let's see. Look what it says there. 100-foot indicators, about 10,000-foot indicators.
11.
1,000 foot. It's like
What do you think is the altitude?
11,000.
Okay, so you see the 1,000-foot indicator is not quite at 2.
1,950.
There you go. Now we're getting there. So actually, the 1,000-foot indicator is not quite at 2,000, so it's a little less than 2,000 feet, right?
That's not very high. So.
Yeah, you're right. How high above the ground would you be flying in this aircraft at Prescott?
57.
In the ground, sir.
You'd be about 4,000 feet under the ground, right? Yeah, so this is not quite 2,000 feet, and you need to know how to do that. What about this plane when he's flying and he hits a mountain? He's going to have the exact same scars on this indicator as the airspeed indicator. So you can pretty much tell the altitude of the aircraft when it bangs into the ground or bangs into a mountain. And that's kind of, actually this is probably the altitude you could take off of Phoenix. Phoenix is like 1,700 feet, and let's say this is 1,900 feet, so he just took off out of Phoenix and maybe ran into a plane. Ran into a plane or ran into a mountain. It's a barometric pressure. You have to adjust the barometric pressure when you're flying. What is standard barometric pressure? We have actually been over this. Can you fly an airplane at 18,000 feet?
Yes, sir.
No. What is it called?
Flight level, sir.
Flight level 180.
Exactly. So what's the difference between 17,990 feet and flight level 180? What do you do?
The
You go up a
altitude.
foot.
No. What do you do?
Change your,
1,000 feet.
Ding, 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 ding. Give me air 5. What do you do?
you change your pressure.
Barometric pressure. See, look at this picture here. Right here on the left, this is a dial. And you rotate this dial, and this window moves up and down. Right now, this is perfectly set up for a plane to be flying at flight level 180. But what is the altitude this plane is flying? What is it?
65,000 feet, sir.
65,000. You're a SR-71? No, this is 6,500 feet. And it just so happens that right at this very second, in this very place in America, the barometric pressure is 29.92. So that's standard barometric pressure. But that's pretty rare that it's 2992 unless you're above 18,000 feet. And everybody runs on 2992 above 18,000 feet because that's when it turns into flight levels. Questions?
On that one, it says the short stubby end. This one, it says it's 10,000 foot. So that's fine.
Well, that is what they mean right there. That's a 10,000 foot incline. Yeah, so everyone's a little different. You're exactly right. This one right here is 10,000 feet. So you can see it's, halfway to 10,000, 6,500. This is a very common. And you see it's calibrated, but that's kind of the common area here. And so we also talked yesterday about a vertical velocity indicator. When you're climbing, this thing is going, and the vertical velocity indicator, you're maybe climbing at hundreds or thousands of feet per minute. Okay? But that's a typical three-pointer. So what is one of the first things you do when you get in your plane in the morning before you take off as a pre-flight check?
Check your engine and your wings.
Keep going. Keep going.
Your lights.
Regarding this, what do you have to do at every place when you take off?
Make sure it's
De-ice your tube.
What's it called?
Pitot tube.
Yay, Air 5, good job. Pitot tube. But also, you turn on your radio and you listen to the weather at the place you're going to take off, and they'll say, Prescott, information weather alpha, say at the beginning of the day, and they'll say the temperature is 89, barometric pressure is 3012. And so you rotate this until it comes down to 3012. And so you take off with a proper barometric pressure for the ground that you're taking off. And when you do that, all of a sudden, this, God bless you, this will be MSL indicated. And so really, this is almost like up towards Ash Fork where the ground is 6,500 feet. This may be sitting on the ground up there at Ash Fork or closer to Flagstaff. Flagstaff's a little higher than this, 7,000. But this could be your plane sitting on the ground around here, okay, not flying. But you set your barometric pressure before you take off. Barometric pressure, we talked about this, how the pressure varies depending on where you fly in America, whether you have a high pressure system or a low pressure system. Back to the weather unit, what is the ultimate low pressure system?
a hurricane.
Ding, 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 Air 5, good job. The low pressure system, a hurricane, it can get down to, not 2992, 28, 27, 26, which is pretty amazing. And so here you can see that if you fly on the exact same pressure across America and you fly into a different pressure system than what you have set, your altimeter is going to be off significantly. And you can kill yourself. You could fly into another plane because your fly is supposed to fly at 12,000 feet and he's supposed to be flying at 13,000 feet, but he's got the correct pressure and you got the wrong pressure, you could actually fly into each other. So you have to have the correct barometric pressure in your plane all the time. Temperature does involve it also. And when you fly from a cold system to a warm system, that also varies the altimeter and what it will be saying. That is on page, actually 329. Does it get into the actual altimeter? Nope. Top of page 329. When you ask somebody, what is your altitude? How many different types of altitude do we have?
5, sir.
That's kind of confusing, isn't it?
It's 5, sir.
When you're talking to a pilot and you say, hey, how high did your plane go today? And he's looking at the instrument, what kind of altitude would that be?
Indicate.
Exactly. So in general, indicated altitude, indicated airspeed is what they're talking about. Airspeed, they're talking about cross the ground speed. And like I told you, actually I have some videos of me flying that I'm going to show you later on. But I was flying like 580 and 590 ground speed. So I was flying 10 miles a minute across the ground. But for altitude, really they're talking about one thing. The indicated altitude is kind of the big thing. Pressure altitude, when you go to pressure altitude, you're talking about 2992 with flight levels, okay? And so those are more specific altitudes that you deal with in doing flight data problems when you are a pilot and you're trying to find out your fuel flow or how long you're going to stay airborne. We're not going to go into those details in this class. We'll do it, like I said, if you take my flight class, okay? All righty. Functions of the attitude indicator. Gee, what is an attitude indicator? What is your attitude?
My mind.
My mind. I'm just joking. What is an attitude indicator? What does an attitude indicator do?
Indicates your altitude.
Altitude.
Attitude.
What is an attitude, guys? Everybody put their hands up. We're straight and level. You have a straight and level attitude. You're going to bank right. What do? You bank right. Okay? So I tell you what, it's kind of confusing. Let's see if I can show you here just a couple seconds. When you're starting to look at an attitude indicator, actually they're on page 334. Why don't you look at that? That's kind of an interesting thing there. On 334, you have all those indicators. That's kind of different. And I actually talked about. I got some time here. I actually talked about a friend of mine who died because he had an attitude indicator that was black. The original attitude indicators were like this, and you had a wiggly thing in there that was supposed to be aircraft, and it was black up and black down, just like it's white up, white down. So the question is, which way is ground?
Down.
Left.
Spit and you'll find out.
Yeah, exactly. My story of dropping the map, and I knew which way was down. So the point is, in the old-timey attitude indicators, you will never know which way is up or down, and you can kill yourself. Okay, but the indicators here on the your page, you can say that this is brown is down, right?
Just like it should be.
So use your hand and tell me which way is your attitude here.
Level.
Straight and level. Okay, well, let's try another one.
Right.
Bank left.
If brown is down,
Yeah.
okay,
thinking.
which way are we going?
To the right, sir.
To your right. To your right.
You're going to your
To your left. To your left.
Look at your
Banking right.
Right.
Look at your example in the book.
Banking right.
Top right, you're banking right. Because when you're turning right, the ground sort of looks like it's coming from the top right. Okay? So everybody go like this, and then bank right. Well, you know what? The world sort of comes like this. That's the way it works. Okay? Here is another one that I used to see every day. I always made sure I did this every day. You're flying, and all of a sudden you're looking at your engine instrument, and it's sort of like this, and you got brown like that.
You're upside down.
Yeah, so your attitude is like this, okay? You got to fly upside down every day. It makes you feel good. So basically, you're looking up at the ground. Yes,
You're like, ooh.
exactly. So you can see how these actual indicators here on the figure 4.9. You might want to look at those. I think those probably wouldn't you put those on a test if you're a flight teacher there? Oh yeah, I'd put it on every test. So if I were able to give you a couple of those and say, choose, is it descending left or up left? Do you see on the bottom left one it says descending left? Do you see why it's descending?
Because it's below the horizon line.
Do you see the little dot here? And actually, that's what I also need to put. You got it. These things are very, very specific. Everybody, do you see on the overhead here where I have the dot right in the center of that area there with the little dot? That dot is what's important. So how many degrees low is the descending left bank there on the bottom left of 4.9?
10 degrees.
It is 10. And I mean, it gets so specific that when you fly an instrument landing procedure, which is instruments, I'm not going to teach you guys about instruments in this class, but when you fly an instrument, you have to fly like 3.5 degrees nose low. How do you find 3.5 degrees on this thing?
Dots.
Very specifically. Like the dot is basically about 2 degrees wide. This little dot, you see the little dot there on the thing? That is about 2 degrees wide. So if you go 3.5, you got to be pretty specific. You got to be very disciplined in doing that. And oh, by the way, you're doing that in the middle of clouds, and you're bouncing around, and it's at night, and you're scared, and you got to do it right. If you don't do it right, you hit the ground.
Uh-oh.
It's not a good day.
That's not
Hit the ground running.
Okay, over here on the right, you see the angle of banks? When you're flying in the weather, you don't want to get disoriented like we talked about. You only keep the angle of bank up to 30 degrees. So actually, I as an instructor would watch people. And if they screw up and go over here towards 45 degrees, I'd fail them. They're dangerous. It's legally, you need to be 30-degree banks, mainly in clouds, so that you don't get disoriented. You don't end up upside downwards like I was talking about over there. Yes, Cody?
Is it possible to be flying upside down and then and to perfectly flip your plane all the way around and land?
If you're upside down, okay, hold it, you're upside down.
Perfectly flip your plane.
Landing.
You're inverted.
Oh, I mean, you're going forward at the exact same time.
You're going like,
You can't land upside down.
No, he means, can you go like this to this in there?
no, I mean
No,
perfectly.
he means can you
Well, that's an Immelman.
flip your plane like you're flying a
Okay, so you're flying up here at 10,000 feet and you do an Immelman and you come down, reverse Immelman, split S is what it's called, and come down and land, sure. Nobody would want to do that because guess what? When your nose goes down, does your airspeed go up or down? When your nose is down, you're going fast. Do you need to be fast when you're landing? No. So you have to go down and put out your speed brakes and put out your gear. I mean, that's an air show type thing, and I'm sure people do that in air shows. But that's not what you want to do in Delta, right? You don't want to, you're not getting paid money to be in an air show when you're flying in American Airlines, right? I love it. All righty. So I need to go over and summarize things here. Tell me what an airspeed indicator does.
Indicates your airspeed.
indicates
How many airspeeds do we deal with? What's the one we usually use when we look at something? But what is the one that everybody wants to know when you're going across the ground? Ground speed. What's the function of an altimeter?
Your altitude meter.
To find out how high you are.
How high you are, but how many altitudes do you have?
5. Which
What's-
altitude you're in.
What kind do you usually use an altimeter?
Indicated.
Exactly, but then to make the altimeter work from the place that you're taking off, what do you have to twist and put in every time?
Barometric pressure.
Yay, you guys are brilliant. You know, these pilots are doing this on every plane you ever fly. These guys that are flying over and you see the little contrails, before they land in California, they are taking their little hands and going dink, 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 because they're getting the landing altimeter of the airport in California. And I tell you what, I almost saw a guy die in England who did not change his altimeter. So if you fly from Europe to England, it's not very far, but the weather's very different. So if you're flying into a low pressure system and the altimeter is different from the high pressure system, you could, try to land at a 450-foot airport, but your altimeter may be a couple hundred feet off. And you're going to crash in the ground. And so actually, what you actually do when you're flying with a buddy, you actually say, altimeter set 2992, and he goes, 2. So you check each other's operation to make sure you're safe. And my buddy said, yep, I set it 3012, and he did not. And he stayed with me, and when we landed, he came and goes, you know what? I landed, but my altimeter said I was 100 feet underground. So if he was by himself, he would have killed himself. Splat. He would have been a crispy critter. All right, what about horizontal situation indicator? What does that mean? HSI.
The way you're sitting in the air.
Way you're sitting there, where you're going. What about an attitude? What about your attitude check?
That's your, like,
It's your hand. It's up and down. It's left and right. Yes, and that's pretty much the function of that. All righty, yay! Everybody say yay! We're finished with lesson 4. This will be the final part on your test, and we will have this online.